Good morning. How are you? Are you awake? Do you have enough coffee? Hi, my name is Amber Case. I am now a fellow at the Harvard Berkman Klein Center of Internet and Society. Because it's academia, the names get really long. And I'm also doing some research over at MIT's Media Lab Civic Media Group, which I just get to research now, which is fantastic. So I'm going to talk to you today about calm technology, especially this quote that I don't know how many of you have heard. The 50 billion devices will be online by 2020. How many of you have heard this quote? For a couple of years, there were conferences where every single person would talk with this exact same quote. And it was always about this future in 2020 in which we will have solved all of these problems because we'll have more technology and we'll have more devices. And at that point, we'll have this utopia. But we've said this for the last 100 years and 100 years before that. One day, we will have things and they'll be really great because we'll solve all of these problems. And really, every time I see one of these quotes, I say, does this actually sound good? Let's look at where it could go wrong. Because we're already living in an environment that technology we know hasn't solved everything. So consider the different things, like when you get the smartwatch, and it has the exact same alerts on your smartwatch as you did on your phone. You have to manually disconnect all of them. And now you get 2 amounts of beeps because you haven't entirely disconnected all of them. Or when you try to turn your phone to Do Not Disturb, but you still get lots of updates from all the different applications, when in reality you should turn your phone to airplane mode, but then you can't get any notifications. Or the smart fridge. There are so many companies that they're like, okay, we're gonna make this smart fridge. Like, why do I need a smart fridge? Like, and what does it do? Oh, well, it locks you out if you've eaten too many calories. All right, well, maybe I ate too many calories because I had a bunch of friends over because it was Thanksgiving. Like, we're supposed to eat more calories on that. Or the idea that you'd have a fingerprint that would like have you open the fridge. The issue is when you're cooking and your hands are completely messy, you can't open the fridge anymore. Or the idea that you have to have a payment plan and somebody has to come by your house and set it up for you manually. Or the idea that recently happened where a bunch of hackers took over a bunch of smart fridges, made a botnet, and made the botnet DDoS some government websites. Which, I love that idea. Also, people keep their default passcodes on everything. So I'm part of a hackerspace, and one of the things we do on like a Thursday night is let's see what's insecure out there. So we'll find webcams. And, oh, the passcode's 1234. Okay, 1234. Hey, look, a webcam. It's a cat. This is great. Sometimes we see more disturbing things. I won't go into that. What happens when you put all this together? You have the smart fridge that's written in one programming language by a different team. You have the smart watch, which is written in its own programming language, which has its own beep and alert cycle, and its own battery that you have to charge. And you get what I call the dystopian kitchen of the future. Everything says something to you. Everything has a different update cycle. Everything has a security patch that you need to download. And already you have a pretty poor connection to Wi-Fi, and now all this stuff is taking up bandwidth. There's a reason why people buy mid-century modern fridges and kitchens, because it's designed as physical buttons. You can press them, you can figure out where they go, and it just requires one plug. You don't have to connect it to the network or connect it to your phone over Bluetooth so that your oven can speak to you and tell you how to cook something. It's absolutely pointless. So we live in this era of interruptive technology. How many of you deal with a phantom ringtone in your pocket and freak out if your phone's not there, or get interrupted and alerted and get completely distracted, or sit there on your phone for a half an hour and then don't know what you really did on your phone for a half an hour, but know that you wasted a bit of time there and have shoulder problems? So we have this era of interruptive technology. We need the opposite. What's the opposite? Well, the opposite is called a calm technology that makes you calm and human. Now, this is not my phrase. I found it from these 2 guys at Xerox PARC. And if you don't know what Xerox PARC is, it's this division of a printer company called Xerox that gave us modern user interfaces. It gave us weird sounds. It gave us Ethernet. It gave us all these different pieces of technology that we use today. And I was wondering, while I was writing my thesis on mobile phones in college, there's got to be more stuff out there. And I found these research papers made by these guys. And one of them was called The Coming Age of Calm Technology. And they said, at some point in the past, we had many people to one giant computer. And then we had a few people to a computer, and then we started to have a computer per person, and now we have many devices to one person. How is that going to change our attention span? How is that going to change how we design technology? In reality, we're designing things for a desktop. In a desktop environment, you pay all of your attention to the screen. You have peripheral things that can go on, but they're not going to distract you. With a mobile technology, you are trying to focus on it as if it's a desktop computer while you're driving, and your primary focus in driving is paying attention to the road, and so it causes these accidents. We're designing these technologies as if we were sitting in front of them, giving them all of our attention. In reality, they make horrible, horrible use of our attention, and that makes us annoyed, that makes us stressed out, that makes us forget to sleep at night, that makes us stay up really late. That inhibits melatonin production in the brain, so we actually have what the Singaporeans call junk sleep, where your operating system doesn't shut down properly before you go to sleep, and you wake up and you're groggy and feel horrible. So one of the quotes that I like from Mark Weiser is, a good tool is invisible. It's invisible. By invisible, it doesn't exist. It just means that it doesn't intrude on your consciousness. You focus on the task, not the tool. For instance, a hammer or a book. A book is the best first VR, because you sit there, and when the interface is good enough, you dissolve into it and you hallucinate all of these things. It makes the best use of our brain's capacity to think, and it also makes the best use of a person's capacity to kind of take themselves out and then distribute themselves over a bunch of generations, because you can kind of put yourself into a book. It's a very stable archive. It can last for hundreds of or even thousands of years, and you can spill coffee on it and it still works. You don't have to plug it in. You don't have to worry about updating the operating system. I really like books as a piece of technology because of this. And text. They're pretty good interfaces, as long as you have a good writer. So let's talk about designing calm technology. So one of the things that Weiser said, Weiser and John Seeley Brown were working in the 80s and 90s at Xerox PARC, and Weiser said that we're going to have a world full of pads, tabs, and boards. This is a board, and the pads and the tablets are the things in your pockets, basically, at this point. So they were really prescient about this, but then they realized the more devices they had, the less attention they had, and that the scarce resource in the 21st century wasn't going to be our devices, it was going to be our attention. How could we make technology that conserved our attention and made sure it was okay? So a few points about this. Technology shouldn't require all of our attention, just some of it, and only when necessary. And in the coming age of calm technology, the example that was given for this is a tea kettle. So a tea kettle, you set it, you forget it, it calls to you when it's done, you can go into another room, you can come back, and it tells you. Right? This is a pretty simple piece of technology. We use it all the time. We don't even notice it. We click it on in the morning and get tea or coffee. Technology should empower the periphery. So we have really high resolution attention here, and then we have lower resolution attention, and we have the sense of touch, we have the sense of hearing, where we can hear behind us. Technically, we can see behind us with our ears. We can taste things. We have all these different senses, yet a lot of our technology works by basically just using our visual sense. We don't need all of that. We can have ambient lights, we can have buzzers, we can have sounds, we can have all these different things. We have much more of an alphabet of senses that we can make use of, and yet we only use a little bit of it. And a lot of these technologies that try to tell us information and take us out of our everyday environment, take us out of being human, force us to look at this screen, they don't really need to do that. They can just give us an alert in a different way. So this is a silly example, but this is the Lumo Back Smart Posture Sensor. So it's something you wear around your back, and it will notice when you slouch, and it will buzz you, and then you'll like stand up straight again. So a lot of people use this who habitually slouch in front of a computer, and they feel a lot better. But this uses the sense of touch. So I had an employee once that got an insulin pump installed, and he was really excited. He said, "I'm a cyborg now, I have an insulin pump." And when we were doing a meeting, I heard a beep. And I said, "Oh my gosh, your insulin pump is beeping." And he said, "This is incredibly embarrassing. I can't turn off the beep. It's beeping in funerals, it's beeping in weddings, it's beeping in theaters. It's really bad, you know? And I said, well, why doesn't it allow you to turn it off? It should buzz. A buzz is a really good thing for a personal alert that nobody else needs to hear. A lot of people leave their Microsoft Outlook sounds on, and it's like, dun, dun, and you can hear when they get email. You shouldn't be hearing when other people get email. You shouldn't even be hearing when you get an email. Maybe you can feel a buzz or something like that, but that's awful. So I walk into these offices, and instead of like seeing people drink and smoking cigarettes, it's just all these Outlook notifications popping up all the time, and no one knows how to turn it off. And this is really, it's really a big issue because those are supposed to be personal sounds. And so the insulin pump could have made it better if they allowed you to change the sound. If you're a caretaker, you need to hear the person you're taking care of sound. So the insulin pump should have a sound. But if you're the person wearing the insulin pump and you don't want everybody to know that you have diabetes or that you need insulin, you should be able to make it a buzz or some different kind of alert so that you don't get embarrassed. And as we get more and more of our technology into medical systems and every single part of our life, how are we supposed to deal with it if we can't change the sound? Another example is houses in the States, you know, there are these giant houses, and then you have these basements with these giant washing and drying machines, right? And they're sitting down there, and when they go off, they are really loud. These buzzers are incredibly noisy, so that somebody can hear it in a 3,000 square foot house. And the issue about that is when you move into a smaller apartment, you want something that's incredibly quiet. The quietness of an appliance becomes really important. How many of you have gone into a bathroom and had those stupid air dryers that are incredibly loud and they just hurt your ears? There's a better way to do that. Plus, that blows all the germs around. It's awful. But that aside, the quietness becomes really important as we live in smaller spaces and as we have more and more of this technology together. There are nurses and doctors that have alert fatigue now because they're getting so many beeps and alerts, all of them blend together. It's like the device is crying wolf all the time. We don't even believe that they're important anymore. It's like looking at advertising on a screen and you just ignore it all the time. So technology should be able to inform you while keeping you calm. Here's an example of my old kitchen. It has a Philips Hue light bulb in it, and that's connected to a weather API. And the weather API changes the color of the bulb based on what the weather's going to be. So I wake up in the morning, walk into my kitchen, and I can feel by the light color what the weather's going to be. If it's going to be really rainy, it's dark blue. If it's going to be light rainy, it will be light blue. If it's overcast, it will be white. If it's sunny, it will be yellow. If it's really, really hot and sunny, it will be deep red. And then if I want to, I can go to the iPad on the wall and actually see the information. But this is a contrast to a lot of videos that you might see from big companies that say, you know, there's this perfect person who lives in San Francisco in a condo, and he lives alone and speaks with the perfect San Francisco accent. So of course, every single piece of technology understands him on the first try when he speaks to it. But then he wakes up in the morning, and then the computer voice says, "Hello, Dave, good morning. You have these 3 appointments today. Can I also get you a coffee?" And he's like, "Yes." And then that deploys the delivery person, who we don't really care about because they're a different class status, right? And they're going to give you the coffee. We haven't automated that part yet. And then they give you the coffee, and then he's great, and he spends his entire day alone, but then he goes on a date, and presumably the date goes well. And what they never show you is the next day. What happens the next day? The person sleeps over and they get woken up by his system that says, "Hello, Dave, you have a tonsillitis appointment, and you also have this other issue with a toe fungus, you know, and you have to deal with this." And the person that he brought home is like, "Interesting." So there's this issue where it works if you're in this enclosed space in films where you have 40 takes for a shot. But it doesn't work in real life, because why would you need that information when you wake up? Who wants to be blasted with a computer voice? That's why we have voice-activated applications like Alexa in the kitchen, so that we can walk into the kitchen after we're awake, after we've sat in bed for 3 hours reading the news on our phone, and then we can go in and then we can decide what we want to do or add something to a list. Technology should amplify the best of technology and the best of humanity. The biggest thing that annoys me is when people say, technology can do all of the job of a human. I love an example of the San Francisco entrepreneur. I'm being really mean to San Francisco. I have a lot of friends in San Francisco. It's okay. But there's this entrepreneur, and he's never taken a public transit system before. And he tells this person on the radio, he says, hey, I want to automate everything. So you should be able to go into the train station and have your digital pass on your phone. It will be fantastic, and then you can just go through. And then you don't need any of the information booth attendants. And the interviewer said, okay, do you want to go downstairs and tell the person that's the information booth that you want to automate her job? And he says, yes, runs downstairs, walks up to the woman and says, hi, I want to automate your job. You should be a computer. You should be able to do whatever you want. And she says, I love my job. I get to do what I want. And he says, but you're not necessary. And right on cue, a couple from another country comes up. And they don't speak the language. Their phones don't work on the service because phones access doesn't work all over the world. It's out of batteries. They don't have the right currency, and the vending machine for the tickets is broken. And she just, kind of takes their hands and says, it's gonna be okay. I'm going to help you out. We're going to figure out the station together. And hands them a station map, which loads instantly because it's written on paper and helps them around the station. And right then, the guy kind of eats his foot and says, oops, I kind of understand now. Not everybody's going to have a fully working battery. Not everybody's going to have the same operating system. If we do make a system, it might work for a little while, and then we're going to have to change it. And so there always needs to be backups. We might have credit cards now, but we still have cash, and we still have checks. Just because we have a new technology doesn't mean we have abandoned all the old ones. Now we just have more choices. It's good engineering to have a redundant backup system so that when something fails, it gracefully decays to the next thing. So technology that tries to do the job of humans often fails, turning humans into computers, speaking into the phone tree, hello, 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 and trying to have the computer understand your voice instead of just pressing a button, or getting a live person on the phone. As we automate more things, customer service will become more and more important, and user experience will become more and more important. But if you have a website that's so complicated no one knows how to use it, you owe it to your users and customers to have somebody there to help them get to the resource they want. Not help them to use the website, help them to get to that resource that they want, and then tell your user experience team so that you can just put that resource on the front page if you keep getting that question again and again. Google's a good example of this because it takes all of the machine-readable information, all these bots go around and gather things, and then when you search in Google, it doesn't tell you the one thing you want. It gives you a choice of many things, and you as a human do the curation. So it's automating a lot, but you at the end are doing the 10 or 20% that you as a human are good at, which is the context, which is whether something's relevant to you. And based on those votes, those search results kind of are always in flux, and then that makes everything more relevant. This is a really nice thing. In fact, it's so simple that when people first tried to use Google, they tried to scroll down the page. They're like, there's nothing on this page, what do I do? Because they were used to these crazy looking indexes that didn't make any sense. This is a good example of taking something that's invisible and making it visible. This is the sleep cycle alarm clock. You put your phone in airplane mode, put it under your pillow, and it uses the accelerometer to figure out what cycle you are in of sleep. And then it wakes you up right before your alarm in the proper cycle so that you don't feel really groggy. This is an example of like 98% sleep that I got one night. I think it was after I was jet lagged. You can actually see like the deep sleep, and then I could have naturally woken up at 6, but then I went back to sleep. And then it woke me up in another like light sleep cycle. And so I didn't feel as bad in the morning, because oftentimes you just wake up at 8 and then you feel horrible, but you don't know why. Finally, technology should communicate, but it doesn't need to speak. If you have a robot voice, you have to translate that into all the different languages in order to globalize it. If you just have a light and a beep, you don't have to translate it into any language. It's universal. This is why I like, one of these projects is called Livewire. At Xerox PARC, Natalie German-Jajko was this artist who said, let's take the network traffic and let's make this plastic wire noodly thing, hang it from the ceiling, and have it whir about anytime something interesting is happening. And so people would hear this in the background. They say, whoa, what's going on? And they all show up and kind of figure out like, who's working on things. And they had these active badges that would track where you were in the building. And they'd be like, oh, Dave's doing something cool. And they'd run down the hall and they'd all see what he's working on. which was really neat, this kind of ambient attention thing. I know some people who do this for their servers. They'll have like red, green, and blue blinky lights that kind of just are always turned on to show the status of the server so that everybody can tell, just like in Star Trek, whether something is okay or not, because there's a red alert and it flashes red if things are bad. Some of the most successful server administrators and software teams that I've seen have used this system because everybody can see all at once. They're not all getting an alert separately on their phone. They're ambiently experiencing it. The Roomba is really nice because it is happy when it's done. Instead of a washer or dryer that goes, it goes da-da-da when it's done. It's like, I'm a happy robot, da-da-da. And then when it gets stuck, it goes dun-dun. And it's so cute, you can just pick it up and move it around and be like, oh, silly Roomba. And then, your cat rides around on it, and then you become a YouTube star because you film it. But it's a cute object, and you don't have to translate into these different languages because you inherently know what's going on with the machine. And this thing doesn't clean floors very well, but people like it a lot. It's a circle. It doesn't clean the corners. If you have one of these, get a vacuum for the corners. This is silly. So technology should consider social norms. When we had the smartphone camera come out, remember when you had a flip phone and then suddenly a camera appeared and everyone panicked about privacy? It's the end of privacy. Now there's phones on all the there's cameras on all the phones. But now all of you probably have a camera phone in your pocket and we're not freaking out. You bring it into the bathroom all the time to play like Candy Crush, not to take photos of people under the stalls. But that was what people were afraid of. And after a few years, we became used to it. We said, oh, it's totally okay to have a smartphone camera. That's fine. But that took a long time. First we had like the landline phone, then we had the cordless phone, then we had the cell phone, then we had the cell phone with the camera. So we'd already had this, and it was just a slight evolution over time with many years. It's not that technology is not ready for us. It's that humans are not usually ready for technology. When elevators first came out, we had to artificially slow them down because people's eardrums really hurt and we were not used to the pressure change. So it takes a while for technology to metabolize into a human system. And when you design your products and you release all of the things at once, every single feature, you get Google Glass, everyone focuses on the most horrible feature they can think of. They're terrified and the thing just completely destroys itself. Plus, you don't have your assembly line set up so it's cheap enough to produce these because you have too many features and you can't stuff all of them in. I think they said that with the iPhone, if you would have tried to do that 20 years ago, it would have cost like $1 trillion to fit all that stuff in, and you would have been able to make one. But because it took a long time, we had little feature by feature at scale, we could have this really superhuman device, and everybody could have one. So the iPhone launch, when the iPhone launched, there was this other thing that happened where people encouraged people to play. And this one app came out that I think is one of the most important apps in history, and it was the fart app. You would press it, and it would make a fart sound. And the reason why this is really important is because it showed you how to use the push feature on the touch display, the like UI button and the UI touch library, and then the audio library. All you had to do as a 14-year-old programmer was drag all these objects into Xcode, hit compile, make a fart noise. You're done. And so all these 14-year-olds were going on YouTube saying, here's how to make an app. It was fantastic. Versus Google Glass didn't really have any of these really amazing, exciting apps because it was terrifying. And you had to pay $1,600 to actually get use of this device. So by the time the iPhone came out with all these apps, people had built silly stuff. And the stories were told through the silliness, not through the seriousness. The right amount of tech is the amount to solve the problem. Keep taking tech away until there's nothing left to take away, in other words. Street lights are great because they're just these small ambient lights. You don't even notice them. You can kind of drive on automatic and automatically punctuate your drive based on whether it's a red light or a green light. The toilet occupied sign in the bathroom on the plane, you can be red-green colorblind. It's a pictogram. It lights up. You can always tell even without your glasses because it's large whether the bathroom's occupied or not. Really, really simple stuff. Hard to design. because it's boring, mundane, and then it gets used for 40, 50, 100 years, and no one notices it anymore. Calm technology is boring. It's just like the electricity in your house. It's there when you need it, and if it goes away, you really notice, and the uptime really matters. Technology should make use of the near and the far. We had technology on the server side that was really far away from us because we had to go to these mainframes and like rent time on them. And then we got desktops that were close to us and everybody had one. And then we started to get the web and things were far away from us. And now we have mobile where most stuff is away from us. Yet we're putting all of our personal data in the cloud. We need to have that with us first and then have it shared to other systems for a temporary period of time until those systems can give us that data back and let us use it again. So it should be ours first, basically. And there's a lot of issues with this that are too long for this talk. But if you process as much as possible on the device itself, you don't hurt the network. And when the network goes down and you're stuck, then you still have your data. Or if you're in a self-driving car, you can actually get to where you need to go because the data is stored locally on how to get to a place. So if good design allows people to accomplish their goals in the least amount of steps, then calm technology allows you to do the same thing, but with the least amount of mental cost, which is the biggest, scarcest resource right now. A person's primary task shouldn't be computing, it should be being human. Everybody wants to automate everything, but you don't want to automate spending time with your family. You don't want to automate birthday parties. You don't want to automate taking selfies with friends. You don't want to automate a dinner. You don't want to automate eating. I mean, you do with Soylent, but why if you could eat something really delicious? So again, that quote, the scarce resource in the 21st century is going to be our attention, not technology. I wrote this book, it's on Amazon, all of the versions of Amazon, and also O'Reilly, and I'll be signing it outside. And there's also a website called calmtech.com. There's principles on it, there's some papers. It's a work in progress as a companion to this. So what I'm just trying to do is resurrect these people's work. Mark Weiser isn't with us anymore, and when I saw his work, I thought it was incredibly important to bring it into the era he was talking about. Thank you so much.